So today, we're going to dive into a sound that's as old as the mountains and forest it comes from. We're talking about the deep, ancient soul of Romanian music.
It's a really interesting question, right? I mean, before there were books, before scrolls, how did people hold on to their identity? Their stories, their sorrows, their joys, their deepest beliefs?
Well, the answer? It's in the air itself. It's music. So we're about to explore a history that wasn't written down for centuries, but was literally sung from one generation to the next.
All right, so let's start our journey with the echoes from a truly ancient land, the Kingdom of the Dacians, which would one day become Romania.
We're talking about a time way before composers or written music even existed. This was the era of pure oral tradition, where music was just completely woven into the fabric of life, birth, death, the changing of the seasons. This wasn't just entertainment, it was absolutely essential.
And this brings us to one of the oldest forms we know of, the bocete. Now, these weren't just sad songs. They were a crucial ritual, a way for the whole community to process grief, and they were led by women who were the keepers of this tradition. It was like a musical guide for the soul of the person who had passed.
And on the other side of life's cycle, you've got the proto-Colland. When you hear the word carol, you're probably thinking about Christmas. But these early versions had nothing to do with that. They were tied to the land, to the winter solstice, to the harvest. They were sung to make sure the sun would come back and the crops would grow. This was literally music as a tool for survival.
Okay, so as society starts to get more complex, something really fascinating happens. This single stream of music begins to split, flowing down two very, very different paths.
And you can see that split so clearly right here. On one side, you have the sacred stream. This was the formal stuff, written down in monasteries, sung in Old Church Slavonic. And on the other side, you've got the folk stream, which stayed alive out in the villages, passed down by memory, and sung in the language of the actual people. They were basically living in two parallel musical universes. So what did that sacred stream actually sound like? Well, it was Psaltic music. I want you to picture a single voice, no instruments, just echoing in a stone church. That was the sound of worship, inherited directly from the Byzantine Empire. Super formal, super structured. But then you have the folk stream, and its sound is the doina. And it's the total opposite. It's completely improvised, it's emotional, it's packed with personal feeling, longing, sadness, sometimes even a bit of rebellion. This is the raw soul of an individual person, not the formal sound of an institution. All right, let's fast forward a bit into the medieval and Renaissance periods. Because as power structures get more complex, well, so does the role of music. You see, at this point, music gets a couple of new jobs. It's not just for village rituals or church services anymore. Now, it's also a status symbol in the courts of powerful rulers, and it's becoming a seriously sophisticated art form in the growing monasteries. Music was now a tool for both earthly power and for divine prayer. And what's so cool is that we can actually connect this music to real historical figures. You've probably heard of Vlad Tepes, right? Well, rulers like him and Stefan cel Mare had professional court musicians. We even know some of their names, like Mihalja and Stoica. And at the very same time, over in the monasteries, you have composers like Eustatii Protosaltol, who are writing down and formalizing these sacred chants. This isn't just legend anymore. These were real people making music. So who were these professional court musicians? Well, they were called the lautari. And these guys were the absolute masters of the secular, folk-based tradition. They were like musical sponges, just soaking up influences from the Balkans, from the Ottoman Empire, and blending it all together into this incredibly vibrant sound for parties and court life. And this is where it all comes together. This brings us to the climax of our story, in a place where all these different worlds were about to collide, 17th century Transylvania. And right in the middle of this unbelievable cultural melting pot, we find a single remarkable figure, a Franciscan monk and musician by the name of Ioan Calioni. To really get Calioni, you have to picture his world. Transylvania back then was squeezed between giant empires. It was a place where Romanians, Hungarians, and Saxons were all living right next to each other. In the same town, you could hear Orthodox chants, Catholic masses, and Protestant hymns. It was a place of enormous pressure, for sure, but also of just incredible cultural fusion.
And it's in this world that Ioan Calioni creates something truly extraordinary, the Codex Calioni. And look, this isn't just some book of songs, it's a snapshot, a musical time capsule of that entire, complicated, multicultural world. It's honestly one of the most important musical artifacts from this entire region and period.
So what's actually inside it? Well, this is what's so mind-blowing. For the very first time, those two streams we've been talking about, the sacred and the folk, they finally meet on the same page. Caccioni wrote down the formal sacred chants of the church right next to the fancy courtly dances of the nobility. And crucially, he wrote down ancient Romanian village dances, like the Călușărulu, giving us the first written record of the folk stream. It's just incredible. And that right there is the real power of this manuscript. It is living proof that even in a world full of conflict, culture can create a space for harmony. The Codex shows us that music could be a point of connection, a shared language in a very divided world. So, after this whole journey through centuries of sound, we end up with this thought. If an ancient funeral lament, a sacred chant, and a village dance can tell us so much about the world of the past, what stories are we recording in the music we make and listen to today? What is our archive going to sound like?